in the 247 rankings. And so now we're looking for them to really combine a lot of these new pieces that they needed with the old pieces that they're bringing back. And so far in spring, like I said, you've seen a lot of good positive notes. I still think there's some things that we're going to have to address in the portal coming up. The spring portal session is obviously going to be big for Florida State, but I think the important thing is just developing what you got, because I don't really think that they have to go out and grab a lot in the portal. I think they just need a couple of pieces to accentuate what they got and provide depth in the pieces in the places that we need it. But overall, man, I'm excited to lay my eyes on this team, and I think it could be a really good season for Florida State. We obviously got some big guys in the boat this offseason. So, man, I'm just really excited to put my eyes on them for the first time this season.
Nice. So where do you think this team can go this year?
Well, I think there's really kind of two things I'm waiting on. One, when you look at the spring game, I want to see, obviously, when you look at Florida State from an offensive perspective, you bring in DJ Uyunglele. You know, there's a lot of mixed feelings on that take from a quarterback perspective. You know, you have a lot of Clemson fans who love to come out of the woodwork and tell us how not great he is. And yet we also understand some of the challenges that he's had in his career. He didn't really have a great receiving core at Clemson, and then he was not the most talented team at Oregon State. But you're hoping that Mike Norvell and Tony Tokarz, the quarterback's coach at FSU, who do have a really successful history with quarterbacks, can kind of get the most out of him, because he was like the top, I think, 206 all-time recruit in 247 history. So you feel good about his potential. It's just, can they get that out of him? They have a really stacked receiving core. There's not a lot of experience there, but there's a lot of talented athletes. You bring in Malik Benson from Alabama, guy's an absolute burner. That's a guy that we're really looking to kind of step up and take that alpha dog spot in the receiver room, which is really one of the things that we're looking for right now. You have a lot of really talented guys, but not a lot of production to hang your hat on. So we're waiting to see who steps up to be the leader in that room. I feel good about the running game this year. You have a deep stable of backs, and you also have depth on the offensive line. You brought in two good transfers in Richie Leonard from Florida and TJ Ferguson from Alabama. So I feel good. The offense, I think, is going to be a little more run heavy this year than maybe I originally thought. But, you know, in 2022, they ran for over 200 yards in 8 games. So I think that is the key to success for this offense. You run the ball and you allow DJ to hit the deep shots, which is what he's good at. And I think he's going to be good for the run aspect too. I think the defense is going to have another good year. They have a lot of depth at the defensive end position. I mean, they literally they can bring in 3 rotations of all guys who I think could start at a lot of teams across the country. They're a little thin at defensive tackle. That's where I'm looking for them to attack the portal the most. Linebacker was a position of concern coming into spring, but we've heard positive reports. So this is something I'm really looking for in the spring game. And in the secondary, we do lose some important pieces, but man, we are loaded at DB. I mean, they have so many defensive. I think we have like 16 or 17 defensive backs. It's crazy. But really, I think if you the guys turn in, like the ones that come in that have potential, that haven't really played a whole lot, if they can live up to that hype, and then we can do a couple things in the portal. Obviously, first off, you got to make sure you keep the important guys in the boat. That's always the tough part of the portal. It's a give and take relationship, and sometimes it takes. Luckily, we've been pretty good with the portal. Man, if they go out and they just add 2 or 3 pieces for depth, I think Florida State can have a really good season. I think when you look at this schedule, for me, I put the floor at around 9-3. I put the ceiling at, I mean, I think they could go undefeated if a few things hit right. Now, going undefeated is hard. I'm not going to say they're going to do that. But, looking at their schedule, I think you have a couple of really 2 or 3, 4 games in here that you circle. You got Clemson at home. You got to travel to Miami. You got to travel to Notre Dame. I think those are really the 3 games that if you can get past, Florida State should be somewhere in like that 11-1 range. I think they have the potential to get to the ACC championship and make the playoffs. But, man, I will say from like an ACC perspective, because I know this is the ACC College Huddle, like the ACC looks like it's going to be pretty deep this year with some really, really good teams. I mean, you have 4 or 5 teams that I think are going to be around the 8 or 9 win range that could compete for the ACC title.
Yeah,
did you pull up that schedule for Florida State?
Yeah, I was going to say, I've got it here. We could pull this one up.
So it looks, looking at it, like you avoid Louisville, which I think Louisville is going to be a top 3, 4 team.
Yeah.
And I've got, and I don't know if you listened to our over-under portions, Jesse, last week, but probably the one I feel most confident about, unfortunately, as a Virginia fan, is Virginia Tech. And you avoid those guys as well. I mean, they return so much, and they've got a quarterback that I don't think many teams want to see.
Yeah. Oh, I'm with you, man. I know this is going to pain you guys a little bit, but I am on the Virginia Tech hype train. Like I do believe in that. I think Kyron Jones is a good quarterback. I think Bashaw Tootin is a really talented running back. They just got to figure out how to win away from home. They were really, really good in Lane Stadium last year, but they really struggled to win on the road. And if they can figure that out, and I want to say a couple of their tough games were at home this year, so that benefits them. But I really do think, man, when you look at what Virginia Tech, I think they're one of the top returning.
They're number one.
Number one, and in returning production. So, like, man, I mean, you look at Vanderbilt. I mean,
they're really the only game on that schedule that you even think they might be an underdog. I would say at Miami, maybe.
Yeah, and that's not a super tough place to play either. No, no. That's not a really hard place to play. And then, I mean, you look at you get Clemson, but they get them at home, which is beneficial to them.
And that's going to probably be a night game, Inter Sandman.
Yeah,
they could be undefeated at that point.
Right.
I think Clemson's a little bit down this year myself. How do you feel about them?
When you talk about Clemson, I think it really hinges on Cade Klubnik. It really does, because you look at last year, his turnover problems were what really killed that offense. Other than that, I mean, they still had a great defense. It's just every time it seemed like they get in the red zone or something, you'd have a turnover or a miscue or something like that. I think Clemson is still really talented. I mean, there is no doubt about that. When you look, I haven't seen the updated 247 composite team talent rankings yet.
Right.
But I mean, last year they had the most talented roster in the ACC. I think that's probably still going to be the case this year, just from their recruiting. But man, I mean, I hate to say it, but I think at some point not going into the portal is going to come back to bite them, because you're losing more now than you're bringing in from the portal. And I mean, if you think with Clemson last year, if they went out and if they had, say, maybe fought Florida State for Keon Coleman, or something like that, and got that level of wide receiver or something like that in the portal, man, I mean, that could have set that team off. But I agree. I still think Clemson, with the talent that they have, is, they float around that 9 to 10 win floor. But man, I mean, they got Georgia game 1. So like, we're going to see what they're made of. But, I agree. I think Louisville's a really big time contender again this year. Now, they've had some struggles with their transfers the last weeks, the last week or so, where some guys have re-entered the portal or left, that I think could be kind of a situation to watch there in Louisville. Miami, man, I think Miami's also in kind of I hate to say it, but like a put up or shut up here. I mean, you're year 3 under Mario Cristobal. You got talent. You got Cam Ward at quarterback. It's time. Like, you have an easy schedule, pretty much. And so it's like, really, they need to hit that 9 or 10 win mark. But man, it's looks like a pretty deep conference this year. I think it's going to be, I'm not like obviously predicting that the ACC is going to go anywhere with the lawsuit and stuff that's going on, but it's almost kind of like a Pac-12 year, where it's like you're kind of uncertain of the future. And yet it could also be your best year that the conference has had in a really long time.
Yeah, I think NC State's going to be good as well. Miami, I think they'll be good, but me and Jeff, we did a draft because we love to just do some fun things like that. But so I had the first pick in the draft for picking the over-unders that we like the best, and my first pick was Miami, actually taking their under. It's just I'm not a believer in the program.
No, man. Miami has the most impressive history in all of college football with doing less with more. Like, they have so much talent all the time, and it just never equates to anything. And they take on Florida first game of the season in the Swamp. That's going to be a tough atmosphere to play in. As a Florida State fan, we have a conversation a lot of times about those two programs. They're our main rivals. And it's like, you look at Billy Napier at Florida, and I think he's just really had a really tough road. I mean, they have the toughest schedule in college football this year and one of the toughest last year. So it's a tough situation, but I think he's a good coach. For me, on the other hand, with Cristobal at Miami, I'm just not sold yet, man. I mean, you look at the success that he had at Oregon, that he inherited Justin Herbert. Since he's not had Justin Herbert, it's really not followed that same path. So I'm in a let me see it first. I mean, it's been
when
20.
You can lose a game and all you have to do is take a knee.
I know.
and,
I know.
and you don't
Yeah.
take the knee and you run the ball, like that is like an automatic, like inexcusable,
Yep.
unforgivable. I can't get past it.
Right.
As a fan, I can't get past it.
Right. And I think it really is when you look at them this year, it's like the excuses are off the board because you have him in year 3. He's been able to recruit. They've had good recruiting. And you also have Cam Ward now. So like you have all the pieces. And so like if you can't navigate the schedule that they have because it's not that hard, then man, the new car smell is going to wear off at some time down there, and it's just going to kind of get stale again. But it's going to be a big year for them. I'm interested to see like what SMU does in the conference this year. I mean, they had a really good season last year, but when you go look at their record against Power 5 teams, it's not impressive at all. I think they're 1-5 since like 2018 or 19. So how are they going to adjust as well? There's some tricky games. Like when you look at our schedule, obviously you have Georgia Tech in Ireland. Can you avoid the distractions? Georgia Tech brings back pretty much their entire offense this year. So they're going to kind of be, I think they're going to be better than they were last year. I think it's interesting too, man. The ACC's got some good quarterbacks. Like you talk about a team like Duke, they're making a change. I think that it hurts that at a place like Duke when you finally get that coach and then he kind of gets poached right away. But I think Manny Diaz can be a good hire for them. And like when I saw they pulled Malik Murphy, I was kind of like, wow, at Duke, really? So like, you get him and then you got a couple of the other guys coming in that I think, quarterback wise, UNC just got Brad Johnson's kid. I'm drawing a blank on his first name. Brad Johnson was Max Johnson. Yeah. I would say Brad was a famous quarterback for us. So, they get Max Johnson. And so you got some really good quarterbacks in this league, man. But that's the history of the ACC. They always have good quarterback play. So I think that's really what's going to make the conference deep this year with guys like, again, like we talked about with Cam Ward, Kyron Jones, DJ Hughes back in the ACC. And so I think it's going to be a really competitive year.
And Syracuse got Kyle McCord out of Ohio State too.
I saw that, man. I think Syracuse is going to be a sneaky good team. I think they're actually kind of building something up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So was DJ, and I don't know if this has come out, but was DJ kind of the first choice from the guys maybe in the portal, or was, because to me, from an outsider looking in, if the kid that went to Miami, Cam
Ward,
yeah, if he had gone to Florida State, I just feel a whole lot better than on DJ. But that's again, I'm looking at it because he underachieved at Clemson.
Yeah,
for reasons that are explainable.
Right.
But I'm just not a believer in him myself. So, was he kind of you guys' first look, or was he more of a fallback?
Well, I think you had two options they honed in on. And the thing was they didn't take anybody right away. Both of them came to campus, both of them visited, and then they eventually went with DJ. And what was funny was Cam Ward was going to go to the NFL, and then he decided to come back to Miami. But when you look at both of them, and we did a pretty statistical dive on everything, and to look at DJ from a past perspective. So you look at what he did at Clemson, and the funny thing about DJ is, again, like I said, this guy was like the 5-stariest of 5 stars coming out of high school,
Right.
And it's fair to say that he's never lived up to that hype. That's completely fair. He's actually never thrown for over 3,000 yards in one regular season. So the interesting thing about that is when you look at Norvell and their history with developing quarterbacks, Jordan Travis was a guy who went from wanting to switch to wide receiver to finishing 5th in the Heisman voting. Mike Norvell, since they've been at Arizona, since he's been an offensive coordinator or head coach, they've never had a quarterback who played the entire season throw for less than 3,000 yards, except the COVID year, which only played 9 games. So something has to give somewhere. Like if he's never thrown for 3,000, Mike Norvell's quarterbacks always throw for 3,000. At some point, something's got to budge. So you're hoping that they can unlock that. I think when you look at what they did at Clemson, he openly criticized that offense when he left, and Dabo agreed, fired the offensive coordinator. They brought in a new offensive coordinator, big name, Garrett Riley. You had the kind of the prodigy there, Cade Klubnik, and their passing offense got worse. So I don't know that it was DJ, but I mean, obviously you wonder where the missing link in the production is. So you think with him coming in, Oregon State's receiving core last year wasn't the most talented. There were a lot of kind of smaller guys. So I think he's going to have probably the best receiving core he's had to work with so far. And I think Mike Norvell is very good at tailoring his offense to the style of play that he has. So I'm hoping that they can unlock there. But, you know, the thing with Cam Ward, why I thought that DJU was the answer for us, when you looked at it, man, he has so many turnovers and sacks. I mean, it's like his fumbles, interceptions, and sacks are like unreal high, like 70 something in the last 2 years. It's insane. But I think with DJU, like if you put Cam Ward, and this could happen at Miami, to be fair, if you put Cam Ward at FSU, could he win a Heisman? Is he like that really high ceiling guy? Sure, I could agree with that. But I think he also has a low floor. I think with DJU, you have a higher floor, but maybe a lower ceiling. But I think Florida State doesn't need him to win the Heisman. I think they just need him to be good enough. And funny enough, when you look at what him versus Jordan Travis last year, and we did a comparison on our YouTube where we looked at both quarterbacks, I know he played more games than Jordan, but if you look at per attempt, the way it breaks down, his numbers were almost identical to Jordan Travis's as far as his all-purpose production. Jordan Travis's production numbers got us to 13-0 at, 10.5-0 before he got injured. Right. So you think if you can copy and paste over to what, this season, and he can produce about the same, I think that can get us to where we need to be. So I really think but you're right, man. I mean, it's going to make or break our season what he turns out to be. So I believe in him, but I think there's also a little bit of that confidence and skepticism at the same time where you just want to see it.
Yeah. I was Jay and I were kind of on the same page. He's the one piece that makes me nervous for Florida State season. I think he's the guy that could put you guys right in the opportunity to win a national title and hit the over. Yeah. Or potentially, there's several teams I think in the ACC over under is 9.5, and Florida State's one of them, and they could be a 12-0 team, or I still don't think, even if he doesn't have a great season, they're still going to have the team's going to have a good season. I just don't know about the national title aspirations.
Yeah, I think when you look at it from like a best and worst case, I mean, obviously you got to stay healthy, one, and if he turns out to just be regular old DJ, like he doesn't get any better, he just continues to do what he's always about. He produces about the same that he always has. I think that's probably good enough to get Florida State with their defense, with the running game and the other pieces that they have. I think that can get you to that like 9-win range, right? Because when you look at it from just a talent level perspective, and talent doesn't always mean you're going to win the game. You get upsets all the time, but you are, as a roster, more talented than pretty much everybody on the schedule except for Clemson, Miami, and Notre Dame, and then probably Florida. But I'd have to see what their updated 247 talent ranking is, because they've lost a lot of pieces. So if you win the games that you should, that's 9-3, and then you kind of need to step up and win one of those three that we talked about. Now Notre Dame is really going to be the test. I've seen some early things about Riley Leonard, had to have some surgery, miss a little bit of time there, so you wonder how that delays his development. But I think the good thing to keep in mind too is with Notre Dame, that's not an ACC game, so Florida State could still theoretically make that ACC championship, and then obviously this year with the 12 team, you have the automatic bid. So I think if they can just get in there, I think they could make the playoffs as either an at-large or an ACC champion. I just think that defense was so good last year, and then there's still some, like I said, there's still some questions. Is DJ going to do what we want him to do? Who's going to step up at wide receiver? But it's a lot of potential, man, and that's what I think gets you excited and nervous at the same time, because coming into last year, you could point to Keon Coleman had 600 or 700 yards at Michigan State. You had guys that had run for 900 yards the year before. You don't have that this year. It's a lot of, we think they can be good. You get Roydell Williams from Alabama. We think he can be good. You get Malik Benson from Alabama. He only put up a little over 200 yards or so at Alabama. Of course, there's a lot of reasons for that. You have Milroe at quarterback, and you had Isaiah Bond and Jermaine Burton there too. But if those guys can live up to their potential, I think Florida State can have a really good season. I don't know that I'm going to say we go undefeated, because that's just really hard to do.
Right.
Injuries, things like that happen. But realistically, I have Florida State going about 11-1.
So we are, for all of our guests on the ACC College Huddle, we are getting folks to give us their predictions of the over-unders for each of the ACC teams. And so I guess right now I can already put you down for an over for Florida State.
Yep, you can pencil that one in.
I'm going to pencil that one in.
Well, let's see I'll say anything less than 9, I think would be a severe disappointment. I really do. Gotcha. I think Florida, really, I think 9 wins would be a disappointment this season. I think they really are looking to make it back to the kind of right the ship, you know, from last year. I know that their motto through spring was leave no doubt. And so I think there is that, you know, they won't openly say there's, you know, retribution or whatever from last year, but I think they're definitely looking for that. Yeah, man, I think anything less than 9 that'd be a severe disappointment.
They definitely have a lot to play for after what happened at the end of last season. So
yeah.
Let's real quick. Let's take a look at these teams. Clemson a 9.5 as well. What's your thoughts there? And like you said, opening with Georgia, that's a tough way to start.
That's tough
in Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at Georgia. Georgia's just so stacked. You know, that's hard to. I mean, Clemson's still really talented, but they did lose a lot on that defensive line. I don't think they beat Georgia. I think they get past Appalachian State. I think, you know, NC State, they've had some battles there, but they get them at home, and that's important because Clemson is so hard to beat in Death Valley. Stanford, that's a win. At Florida State, I think we get them. I think it's, you know, we managed to beat them in Death Valley. It was super close overtime game. I think, you know, Wake's a win. Sorry, guys. I think, you know, maybe it'll be the upset of upsets, but, you know, I think you get there. Versus Louisville, because you get them at home, I'll give the edge to Clemson, but I certainly wouldn't see, you know, that could be a loss there. At Virginia Tech, man, I would go as far to say the Louisville, Virginia Tech. That's going to be a really tough stretch. Oh man, that's a good. I think that's a really good number for Clemson. I might even take the under on 9-3 with them. You figure Georgia, Florida State, and either Louisville, Virginia Tech. I'm going to go under on them. I'll go with a 9-3 type season.
I'm in agreement on that too.
That's a good number though.
Last week it could even be 8-4. It wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. If they drop Louisville and Virginia Tech, man, that's a good number.
Yeah.
South Carolina's no gimme at the end either.
No, it's not. Yeah, definitely.
We got Miami.
Let's go under on Miami without even. We don't even have to look. It's under. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
You know, here's the thing, man. I think they have the ability to beat Florida. I think that it's in the swamp. I think it's early, which benefits Florida because when you look at Florida's schedule, and this is something that I talked about with us. I think by the time they meet Florida State in the last game of the season, they're going to be on a 7-game losing streak and probably might have DJ Lagway at quarterback with an interim coach because the back half of their schedule is the unbelievable gauntlet. And so I think getting Florida early will help. But man, I'm thinking they can beat Florida. I just don't think they're going to do it in the swamp. Obviously, you get A&M, Ball State, South Florida. I think those are wins versus Virginia Tech. Man. They get them at home. That helps a lot. Right. I think, yeah, man, that's a tough one. At Cal, I think they should win that one. At Louisville, I think they lose that one. I think they lose to Florida State. Duke, that's kind of a little rivalry for them now with Manny being back in town. Yeah. Let's go 9 on Miami too. I'm going to go under on them. I'm with Jay, man. I'm just not sold until I see it. It's been 20 years since they've had one 10-win season in 20 years. I need to see it.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement there as well. Louisville 8.5.
That seems a little low with what they've done in the portal. Now I think it's worth watching what they continue to do in the portal because they've lost some important pieces so far. But you feel good about Austin Peay, Jacksonville State. I know Georgia Tech was a tight game with them last year, but that was Brahms' first game as coach. At Notre Dame, I think they probably dropped that one. I like them against SMU, Virginia, Miami. That at Clemson seems tough. You know, that one I think seems tough there, but I would put realistically Louisville probably in that 10-2 range, maybe 9-3. I mean, if they did take a pretty good class, and Jeff Brom to do what he did in year 1, I mean, that's just really like I think that immediately threw up a red flag to everybody else. Like, he might be something to reckon with there at Louisville.
Yep.
NC State another 8.5.
You know, I would give this one to NC State regardless of their schedule because they are the most perennial 9-win team in the history of all teams. Like, I think when you talk about ACC from a whole, the most mind-boggling stat of the whole conference is that NC State only has one 10-win season in program history. It's hard to fathom with guys like Russell Wilson, at quarterback and things like that. But, you get Western Carolina, that's a win, a little tune-up before Tennessee. Man, Tennessee, kind of a real up and down. Are they going to have Nico at quarterback this year? That could be a new starter for them. At Clemson is tough. I think you got the rest of those are pretty winnable. At UNC could be a little tricky there. I think they're going to go over. I mean, I think they're going to get at least 9 wins. They always find a way to get 9 wins. Dave Doran is a really sneaky good coach. He's built a really consistent, good program up there. I think they're going to go over on that.
All right. Moving on, North Carolina. 7.5.
Man, this one's tough because, like with Max Johnson, you just don't know. I mean, this is his 3rd program now. They lost Tez Walker. They lost an NFL, probably the first round draft pick at quarterback. That's a tough to recover from. And, with North Carolina and Mac Brown, I always call it the Mac Brown specials. Like, until I see them not fold like a cheap tent in a windstorm in a big game, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to bet on them. It's one of them where they take App State to double overtime, and then they blow out right after blowing out South Carolina. It just doesn't make any sense. But they should beat Minnesota, Charlotte, NC Central. I feel good about those. James Madison could be tricky. They're actually a really good team. At Duke, Pitt, their schedule's very favorable. I think you got
it is.
I think Florida State, NC State, and maybe one upset in there. So I'm going to go over on them just from an easy schedule standpoint.
Yeah, Jesse. Yeah. So in the last 7 times Virginia's played Carolina, we're 5-2, and that's with some bad football teams. Even last year, it was like a 23-point dog. We went into Chapel Hill and won at night.
Hey, that's that upset right there. Let's give them. We'll go ahead and pencil that one in. We'll go a loss at Florida State. We'll go a loss at NC State, and then a big upset against Virginia. Virginia's going to pull it off.
Well, and UNC's ranked last in the ACC in returning production, and over 100th in the nation. So, they were a pretty good team last year. They did lose a lot, but that schedule is a favorable schedule too.
Very, very much so. But man, anytime you have to replace a guy like Drake May, I mean that's just hard. I know they do have the other really, really good receiver back, but again, it's going to hinge on what Max Johnson does.
Right. Moving on, Virginia Tech. I think we already discussed them. I'm pretty sure where you're going on this one.
Yeah, I'll take the over on them. I mean, again, just to reiterate, like with all that returning production. Now, I will say returning production was big for us last year, but that doesn't always mean it's the end all be all. I did a little thing where I looked up last year the top 10 returning teams in returning production. I think 50% of them had a better record than the following year. Then of the top 10 teams that in the portal, 80% of them, 8 of the 10 teams had a better year. So sometimes returning production isn't necessarily everything if it's not the best returning production, but I do like a lot of their pieces. And that's the difference with Virginia Tech. They have quality returning production. So I'm going to go over on the Hokies this year.
And the stats you just gave that would be good news for Virginia, actually, because I think we're second in the ACC in returning production, but also our portal was ranked in the top 20, I believe, for
it is a good way.
Well, we'll get that Virginia.
Yeah, it is a good way to reload. I mean, it does. You can go get some crucial pieces.
Right. SMU, these are the tough ones too, because we really haven't seen a lot of these teams here. They're a 7.5.
Yeah, the funny thing, I want to say they didn't have their quarterback for the bowl game. I'm pretty sure something happened. I think he got injured or something like that. I'm pretty positive there.
Yeah, but leg injury.
Yeah, I think he did have that leg injury, so he was out. And I want to point that out because you look at the bowl game last year. Welcome to the ACC. You lost to Boston College.
Right.
kind of a middle tier ACC team. But you look at their schedule, and TCU's a team that they've struggled to beat, so they might have a loss there as well. I think they, welcome to the ACC. They get to play Florida State, but they get us at home. They got Louisville. I mean, they didn't do them a ton of favors on the schedule this year, but I mean, they don't have a ton. So I'm picking out, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go, 7.5 is really good because I think they might. I think I might take the under on them. They have a pretty good like their offense and defense were both pretty good. But again, like when you look at some of the numbers, and I don't have them pulled up in front of me, but when you look at some of the numbers where they were their numbers against Power 5 competition versus non-Power 5 competition, I mean, it's ridiculous when you see the difference in their point differential. So yeah, man, I think it's gonna be a welcoming party to the ACC. Yeah. So I'll go under, but I think they'll finish about 7-5.
Got you. Syracuse, we talked about them earlier, 6.5.
Yeah, they, you got to replace the coach and their coach, Fran Brown. I don't think he's ever been a head coach, so you kind of always wonder how that goes. They did bring in the quarterback from Ohio State, but you could ask some Ohio State fans; they probably are happy to send him off somewhere else. But you feel good about Ohio. I think I think Georgia Tech is going to be better than people think this year, just from all the stuff they bring back on offense. Stanford probably going to be a really, really long year for them. Holy Cross, I think they get one there. I think they'll probably lose to NC State. So you're looking at, I got them with 2 losses now. I think they lose to Virginia Tech. That's 3. I think they lose to Miami. That's 4. So probably if you pencil an upset in, I'll go under on Syracuse at about 6-6 because I can't take all the overs.
Right. All right. Duke, 6.5.
Man, Duke is definitely, like I said, man, Malik Murphy changes the outlook of that team. I think, but you also look at Duke last year, they started really hot and then they kind of folded. A lot of their stuff was hinged on Riley Leonard. I think Elon, that's probably when there. Northwestern was terrible, but man, they actually made a bowl last year, so they kind of turned things around. I still think Duke could beat them, but it is on the road. But their Northwestern's got that weird situation this year where they're playing with like a really, really small stadium, so that's probably kind of almost like a neutral site. UConn, not good last year. Middle Tennessee, new coach this year. So I'm going to go, man, let's see. A loss to Florida State, a loss to North Carolina, loss to Miami, loss to Virginia. Let's go under for Duke on the first year. Let's go under for them. I think the thing about them too is Manny always had really good defenses at Miami. They just struggled to find an offense. They have the quarterback, but can they put it together on offense? But man, he can put together a defense. I'm just not sold on him as a head coach yet. But he's a heck of a defensive coordinator.
I'd say that's kind of a tough schedule too.
It is. It's not super easy.
That back half of the schedule is real tough.
Yeah, and you wonder like if they lose to say, North Carolina, Georgia Tech, or Florida State, like if they drop 2 of those games, then you got at Miami, at NC State. Right. Plus, how does that start to snowball? I'm going to take under on Duke this year.
Cal, another one of our new ACC schools.
Yeah, this one's interesting, man, because you look at Auburn last year and they played them tight. I mean, they had the lead in the 4th quarter. I think they missed like a bazillion field goals to end up costing them that game. They got to go to Jordan Hare this year. That's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Hugh Freeze kind of has them playing very inconsistently well at times and also terrible at times. You've got to travel to FSU, Miami. I'm going to go under on them just because I think, first year in ACC, a lot of travel, not a super easy schedule. I'll take the under on Cal.
Yeah, that's a lot of miles.
That's a lot, man. That's a lot. I'm kind of glad we avoided going out west this year. Dallas is the farthest that we go for the new ACC teams, but man, that's a long trip.
It is.
Yeah.
Pitt, 5.5.
That's got to be painful for Pitt fans, man. But last year was uncharacteristic for them. I mean, this is a team that, again, since Narduzzi's been there, they're a pretty consistently good team. Not great, really good. They have a couple of good years. Cincinnati, West Virginia, those are 2 tough tests there early. And then you get North Carolina. Their schedule's not that hard. I mean, you got Clemson, Louisville. I think that could beat them. But, they also had some upset wins. They beat Louisville last year. So I'll take the over on the Panthers. I think they're going to have a little bit of a rebound this year. And that's without looking at entirely what they got. But I will say when I scouted them for our game last year, man, they lost. I mean, I think it was like their quarterback, their top receiver, their top running back, their top linebacker. Like they lost so many pieces. I think they rebound this year and get to a bowl.
All right. Georgia Tech.
Let's see this. Ooh, that schedule does not look favorable. You get Florida State, you get Louisville. I think that's probably 2 losses there. You get Notre Dame, that's probably 3. Virginia Tech, that's 4. NC State and Georgia, that's 5 and 6. Man, that's a tough schedule. Again, I think Georgia Tech, it may not show up in the record, but I think with that offense and Haynes King coming back, I think I'm going to take the under on them at 5 and 7. But I will say that I think if I had to pick one team that I don't feel confident in picking that number, it's probably going to be Georgia Tech because, I just think that they have enough pieces on that offense to get some things going.
All right. Boston College, 4.5.
Man, this is interesting. You got the first year with the new coach, which I think Bill O'Brien was a massive get for them. I think when you saw their coach leave late in the cycle, you were like, well, what are they going to do? And then they went out and they kind of hit a home run. But they also have Thomas Castellanos at quarterback, who gave us all kinds of fits last year. So you get Florida State, which is, I think, traveling to Doak, that gives us an advantage. That game last year scared a lot of people. I think there was a lot of things people don't understand. Half the team had the flu and all that stuff. But at Missouri is a tough game there. I'm going to give them 2 losses there. Virginia Tech, and Louisville, I think you get 2 more losses there. So we're up to 4. And then let's say North Carolina, that's 5. Hey, Virginia, Michigan I feel like State, Virginia's, that's a tough. I mean, Michigan State, that we'll have to see with their new coach. Virginia might be the team to come up and pull an upset there. So we'll go under for Boston College in the first year. I think they might hit that 4-8 number. I think a lot of these numbers are really good though when you look at it.
Right. All right. Here's the Who's UVA.
Oh man, undefeated. Let's go. I think really with when you look at Virginia, they're such an interesting team because there was so many close calls last year, and it's just finding the way to win those games when they're on the line. Like you said, you guys would come into a game and be a 20-point dog and end up being a 3-point game or something like that. So I think Virginia is so close. And you look, Richmond, that should be a win. Wake Forest, that should be a win. Maryland, they got a new quarterback this year. So, I mean, they're a pretty consistently okay team. Tua's brother's gone, Talia. Coastal Carolina, they just lost Grayson McCall. That was like their Tom Brady for that program there. Yeah. So I think you guys could start the season. I mean, if you get past Boston College, you could really be like 4-1, maybe even 5-0. I think Louisville, Clemson, and North Carolina is an extremely tough stretch. That could be 3 losses there, and then Virginia Tech, Notre Dame. So I'm going to go over on UVA. I think it might be slim. Might be.
I think you must have listened to our episode last week because basically we said we have to come out 4-2, 5-1 in that first 6.
Yeah, I mean, like I said.
Yeah, you're looking at you either beat Carolina or you beat Pitt at Pitt. Maybe you can steal SMU.
You see the potential for things to go bad late. The back half of that schedule is it's kind of brutal. With Louisville and Clemson are going to be really tough. North Carolina, I mean, again, you get them at home. You snuck up on them last year. Pitt is still rebuilding. SMU, again, that Power 5 level. I think they can get the over. I think it's just going to be kind of close.
Yep.
Yeah, we honestly 6-6 would be a season that I think in a bowl bid that would be progress for Coach Elliott.
Yeah,
and that's all that we want to see really this year.
I think it sells progress, man. It sells progress, and it allows you to get those extra practices if you make a bowl. Yep. That helps as well, and then it also helps on the recruiting trail. And really, I think for Tony Elliott right now, he needs something good to happen. Like you just need a spark of something before you start to wonder how long has he got.
Yep. And so I don't know if you saw this, Jesse, going away from the over-unders for a second, but Virginia's governor signed a bill yesterday that will allow the Virginia colleges to basically not pay the players to play, but pay them for marketing purposes. So, I mean, in effect, you can pay the players straight out of the university at this point.
I did see a little bit of that.
So that was huge because, I mean, you don't even have to really worry necessarily about a foundation necessarily. I mean, you still going to use that.
I did see a little bit of that.
I think we froze you, Jesse.
I think we lost you. Is Jesse here? I think we've lost Jesse. I think he didn't like with the state of Virginia
to pay the play.
There you are.
There we are.
You're back. You're back.
Yeah, I did see a little bit of that, man. I got to read into it a little bit more, but I mean, it's any kind of advantage you can get in that space, I think makes a huge difference. And
we've
different teams. different teams in the same conference that have different rules. I mean, I just saw today where I think Memphis FedEx committed $25 million in NIL dollars to that school over the next couple of years to kind of make sure their home city university. And like, that's a huge advantage for them. So NIL it's really leveling the playing field, and it's crazy, man. But that's great for the Virginia schools.
Yeah. Yep. We got Wake Forest 4.5. Man,
this is a tough one for Wake. I mean, I questioned how life was going to go after Sam Hartman, because I just thought, man, he was so crucial for them. You also lost A.T. Perry, and we kind of saw how that went last year. So, I mean, you figure they should beat A&T. Virginia, I think they dropped that one. Ole Miss, then obviously Ole Miss is building something through the portal there. I think they're going to be really, really good this year. They should be able to beat Louisiana. NC State, that's probably a no there. Clemson, a no there. UConn, I mean, UConn, it looked like they had started to get some traction under Jim Mora, and then they kind of fell off last year. Stanford, this is probably going to be the battle for the bottom of the ACC between those two. Man, I think it's going to be another long year for those guys. I'm going to go under on them. We'll put them at about 4-8 or 3-9.
All right, and the last team, Stanford. It's a tough year, and that schedule is brutal too.
Yeah, they didn't do them any favors the first year coming into the ACC, and when you look back and you look at Stanford, they've had a lot of 3-win seasons in the last few years, so it kind of feels like that's probably about where they're going to end up. You get TCU again. That's probably a loss there. Then you should beat Cal Poly. Man, this is the most insane ACC game ever. To send Stanford all the way to Syracuse for pretty crazy. But I think Clemson, Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, NC State, Louisville, those are all losses. I'm going to I'll take the under on them. I think Cal Poly, San Jose State, maybe. I mean, they're still not bad. Yeah, I think they're going to be probably a 3-win team this year.
Yeah, they were tough. I before looking at the schedules and I saw 3.5, I was like, Jay, let's pull up Stanford. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, to be sure they're an over. And I just start looking. I'm just like, Jay, I don't know if I can find 4 wins on there.
No, I don't. And when you look at their history too, I mean, that's about where they fall in that kind of 3-win territory. So, it's just going to be tough.
Andrew Luck's not walking in the door.
No. And Christian McCaffrey he's in California again, but I think he's out of eligibility.
That's right. Well, Jesse, we appreciate you coming on tonight. How can all of our listeners catch Plant the Spear and listen to some of you guys' content?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously the best place to start is plantthespear.com, our website. That's kind of our hub for everything. We have the podcast, YouTube, and written articles over there. You can also check out our YouTube channel where we post everything. And of course we have the podcast as well. And then social media is a great place to get in on the conversation with us. We're pretty active there. It's summertime coming up. So we're going to start working on our preseason magazine for next year. We do a digital magazine that usually ends up being around 40 or 50 pages or so. So that's a couple month project over the summer that we work on, but it'll be really exciting. So, make sure you jump in the boat now so you can make sure you don't miss it. And of course, stay tuned with the College Huddle, because we got some big things coming up here that are going to be really exciting going into the season. And of course, you can find us over there on their website as well. So just excited to be a part of the team and for the season upcoming and all the things we got going on at the College Huddle, as well as Plant the Spear.
Yep. Well, we appreciate you joining us tonight, Jesse, and hopefully we'll link back up when we get closer to ACC football time. And also we'll hopefully catch you on the Cavalier Connection as well. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. The funny thing is this is going to be a great episode with all these, but after the portal, we might have to revisit all these again, because you just don't. I mean, it's free agency time, so we just don't know who's gonna end up where.
Yeah.
But
it's the way too early over under picks.
Yes, exactly.
So, all right, Jesse, we're gonna let you go, and you have a great evening. We'll see you soon.
Guys. I appreciate y'all having me on. Y'all have a good night.
Hey, you too.
Great night, Jesse.
Yes, sir.
All right, and we appreciate Jesse coming on to join us here on the ACC College Huddle. And for everybody listening out there, go to thecollegehuddle.com. Check out Plant the Spears stuff. Cavalier Connection has things on there. Jay's been an avid writer for the Cavalier Connection, and he's got some articles posted on there. And check out all the other podcasts that are out there. Also, there's conference podcasts. You have the Big Tens. the Big 12s, the collection of non-Power 5 conferences. But check them all out. A lot of great content. There's talk on some of these for realignment, ACC lawsuits. I know we had a controversial episode last week, and I know it got a lot of attention and a lot of reaction. So check it out. Check out our episode from last week. So we were fortunate enough to also talk to Evan from the Red White podcast, which is NC State's podcast on the College Huddle. And so we discussed with him, NC State, Jay, unfortunately, as Virginia fans, we set them up very well to become the darlings of March between the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament. But we were able to reach out and talk to him, and we're going to sit back and hear what he had to say. And Evan is the College Huddle's representative of the NC State Wolfpack. They are the voice of the NC State Wolfpack for the College Huddle, the Red and White, or the Red White podcast. We'd like to welcome you into the ACC Huddle tonight. How are you doing tonight, Evan?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
That's cool. We appreciate you coming on and spending a little time with us. So you guys were the darlings of the NCAA tournament. And Jay and I, we come from the Cavalier Connection podcast. And so we had a little to do with that, I think.
We had a whole lot to do with it.
Yeah. Jay and I think we got about as many listeners as we've ever had after what happened when we played y'all in the ACC tournament. I definitely did not see that coming from blowing that lead like that. But what were your thoughts? I know in that game against Virginia, I'm guessing you watched the game.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it all started with that Virginia game, and every time I watch it back, and I've watched it back a few times, and they've run it on the coaches show a few times, it's still, I'm like, we're going to lose this game. Like, I feel like we're going to lose the game watching the Virginia game. Like, we're down 5 with a minute and a half left. How the hell did we win this game? You know, McNeely on the line, 87% free throw shooter, bricks the front end on the 1-on-1. There's nobody there to get a rebound. They let O'Connell get the shot off. Like, all these things just so improbable happen. They fouled Casey Morcell on the 3. Like, it still doesn't make sense. And I've watched that game back, and I still think we're going to lose it.
And we had 3 fouls to give. Reese Beekman went to the foul line with a 5-point lead, 2 shots in the ball.
He was 1 for 4 in the last minute and 10 seconds from the line. Yeah. And he's 75%, I believe.
Yeah. And he's a 4-year senior. You expect, could you make at least 1 of those or 2 of those or something? Yeah, that was rough. So we got on. As frustrated as we were, Jay said we need to go live because if we want to get some viewers, and they were coming in packs into that to that live podcast. And that was at what time, Jay? That was late.
It was like midnight.
Yeah,
I mean, it was super late.
We got a guest out of that. Actually, we got one of the football players was in there. He had to. He was commenting as well.
That's great.
Yeah, so you beat Virginia there in improbable fashion, and then you move on to North Carolina, and you win that, and here we are. You're in the NCAA tournament. What were your thoughts on, real quick, Coach Keats before the ACC tournament?
Oh, I wanted him fired. I mean, I've been on the fire Keats bandwagon for a few years now, and I'm not out there preaching it, but my listeners will know that I'm very critical of him and the product he's put on the floor. I mean, they were 19-14, right? I mean, they were not good, bottom half of the league. He hadn't won anything. He barely made the NCAA tournament. There's all kinds of excuses for him and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, I have a whole, it's literally 3,500 words written up of all the replacements that we could have hired, right? I mean, it's sitting in my drafts now. I'm like, well, I guess I can't post that. Like, it's, I was ready to get him canned. I heard he was told he was not going to be retained unless he won. And it's so improbable that it happened. It's unbelievable.
I'm with you. And now, you guys made that run. How are your thoughts now? Are they still the same, or you?
I mean, he earned it, right? Whatever,
right.
I don't take it back because
right.
he had not done anything to warrant, being here for 8 years and just he hadn't done anything to warrant it. Right. And so I don't take anything back, but now that he's done it, I'm trying to give him more leeway, right? And the benefit of the doubt that, okay, you've won the AC championship. You've done what nobody else has done in forever. And you made it to the Final Four. Like, it's not just the AC championship. They made it to the freaking Final Four.
Right.
So, like as much as I have my questions about his abilities, like they actually made it to that point, and you're like, okay, well, I can't hate him too much. He's gotten there. I hope he uses it as a springboard to build on for the next year. Like, I don't want us to come out and make the same mistakes we've been making for the first 7 years, right? Something clicked, and I hope it's a learning process for him, and then he's gotten better. And I think same thing about our football program. Dave Dorn was the same way for a while, and then he started evolving, hiring new coaches and doing things differently. And you could see him maturing as a coach and getting better. I hope this is the same turning point for Kevin Keats, and that's kind of where I am right now. It's like, okay, you've won, you bought yourself some time, but let's capitalize on it. Let's keep going. I'm not saying you get Final Four every year. You're not to win the ACC tournament every year, but compete, be in top 5 in the ACC league, in the ACC, and have the program that all the state fans want you to have. And I think you can have, and you can position yourself to be. So, we'll see. It's the highest NC State has finished since 1974, which blew me away considering they won the 1983 basketball tournament. Right.
They won the I didn't know that until you said that. I was thinking, wait a minute.
Well, the poll beforehand.
When I think about NC State, I think about a team that's just always right on the cusp and has all the pieces, and it hasn't come together. Like, I think most state fans, and correct me if I'm wrong, winning the ACC tournament would have been enough, like, to satisfy the base. Then, getting to the NCAA tournament, I picked you guys in the first round of my bracket and had you going out in the second round. I think that would have been looked at as a huge success, win a tournament game. But for you guys to make the run that you made, and like you said, so the only thing that I would worry about as a state fan would be like, did we take a step forward, but because we didn't, now we can't get rid of Keats? Like, did he buy himself 2 years with a Final Four, 3 years with a Final Four? Like, and considering he was gone over 8 years, and 8 years got turned around in a matter of 4 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it was.
Yeah, so I think the way to look at it now is, he's pretty much writing his own ticket. Now, you can't revert back to being terrible, right? At some point, that's going to wear off in 2-3 years, and like the fan base wants to win now, and I get that. I think what he needs to do, and I think what will happen if he does it, if he elevates the program a little bit more, right? If next year they're competitive, they're top 5, and they're in the tournament easily. There's always a chain reaction of jobs being open. I think at some point it won't be a fluke, and somebody will come looking for him, right? At some point, whoever Kentucky hires is going to be fired in 2-3 years, because that's just how that happens there. And then, maybe they go get Scott Drew this time, and then maybe Baylor comes for Kevin Keats, right? I mean, there's a chain reaction like that that's going to happen, as long as he keeps moving in the right direction. Like, I don't think he's here if we have this conversation in, 6 years. And I think, or 5 years even. I just don't think he's around one way or the other. He knew his clock was ticking, and at some point that'll come back at some point, right? That's just how fans work. So I think if he keeps improving, he probably goes to another job. If he stinks again, then he's bought himself some time, just because the contract auto extends and all those bonuses he got built in. But we'll see. Like, he won.
How much of that team returns?
A bunch. We lose DJ Horn, DJ Burns, and
Casey Morsell.
Yeah, thank you. And there's rumors of other guys leaving, but you never know. But everybody other than those three can come back. So O'Connell's got another year. Jaden Taylor's got another year. Diarra's got a couple more years. Middlebrooks has a couple more years. So all those guys come back. They're going to bring in, they have a bunch of guys visiting the portal. I think the Final Four run has really helped their attractiveness in the portal, right? Sure. And I think they should fare better in the portal this time around, given the profile there. And you look, hey, we can win here. So,
yeah, I think Burns was a huge piece, but the one to me that really made the biggest difference was Diarra. And
he was phenomenal. Yeah.
He was a transfer portal piece from last year, right?
Yeah, he was from Missouri. And the rumor is he was a soccer player, didn't start playing basketball until his junior year in high school. So he's just learning. Like, he's just now getting to the flow. And you could see that come to fruition in the ACC tournament, right? He had 60 rebounds in the ACC tournament. He's a walking double-double at this point. And if the light bulb clicks for that guy, man, his potential is through the roof. He's long. He can handle the ball. He can shoot. He's disruptive. I mean, if he stays and you pair him with Hatley Hunfield from Louisville, who just committed to NC State, that's a very long team that can all shoot, right? Because Hatley Hunfield's 40% shooter. He doesn't shoot a lot, but he can shoot from three. Now you could have potential to have 5 guys out there that can shoot, and like, that's tempting.
Yeah.
Speaking of DJ Burns, what are your thoughts of DJ Burns as an NBA prospect?
I don't think he is one. Hell of a player, hell of a college player. He has, his effort level elevated in the ACC tournament. I've talked about it quite a bit. That, he did what he needed to do during the regular season. He tried, but his level in the ACC tournament, like, you can see if you go back and watch, he's really like putting an effort to run up and down the court, right? He's not just jogging up and down the court or, moving slowly. He's a big man running a lot, and he played a lot of minutes. Like, his effort level ramped up, and I think he loves basketball. I don't think he's an NBA prospect, given the more of the NBA game right now is very 3-oriented, and not a lot of power forward kind of guys. I suspect he will probably make a living playing basketball overseas somewhere and probably do very well.
Yeah, and he's in the NBA. It's a lot of big guys in the NBA who are big and strong. When Virginia played NC State the first time this season, and we were starting Blake Buchanan, and you look at the two of them, good God, Blake Buchanan for us is a freshman who he definitely needs the weight room, but gosh, he looked like a stick. Yeah.
It was a pine tree in a tornado. It didn't stand
he was. Yeah, he was. And we knew it was trouble, because the one thing about Burns, I thought he did such an outstanding job of passing the basketball out of those double teams. That double team comes, and when we played y'all the first time, good gracious. I wonder I don't know how many assists he finished the game with, but every time he passed it, the 3 was dropped. And I know we adjusted. What's that?
No, so that game was the NC State team that we got in the tournament, and the ACC tournament, and then the NCAA tournament. Like, that was what we saw, because they played about as good as they could play in that first Virginia game. And they shot well, the ball moved, it didn't stick, and you're like, man, this team right here. And that's why I was saying all year that we're better than what we've put on the floor, right? And that was my biggest criticism of Keats. Is like, there's too much talent for them to stink. And then you look at the Virginia games, like, look what they just dismantled Virginia.
Yeah.
Right. That's, this is what this team can do. And then you got that in the tournament, and in the Final Four, they kind of reverted back to them, but it was just, you're playing with house money at that point. I don't hate on it too much, but yeah, like, Burns' ability to pass he really developed that this off season. He's always been good with the ball, but his recognizing the double team and not holding on to it, really, really elevated this year. I mean, he faced triple team in the Oakland game, and I thought he held onto the ball a little bit too long, and we were lucky to get out of that game. But outside of that, I thought he was phenomenal for all 10, 11 games that we just played.
Yeah, he probably can go about anywhere in Raleigh and not pay for a meal.
You get a free steak anywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. So here, I'll tell you a story that was told to me when he was at Winthrop, and they had practice late at night, or they would get finished late at night, and the dining hall is closed. They don't have the facilities that other schools have, and they didn't have any money, and he would go back to his dorm hungry. Right? I mean, it's crazy that he's gone to, and now there's rumors he's made $500,000, $750,000 in the last 3 weeks. So I mean, the guy has done phenomenal for himself, and I'm all for him finding that success. It's a great story, and I mean, he's by all accounts a great kid. So more power to him, man. He's been great, and he'll never have to buy another beer in Raleigh, the rest of his life. And there's people making the argument that they should put his number, they should retire his number, and NC State's kind of weird about that. But I can make that argument really quickly, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. And you guys you win 5 games in 5 days in the ACC tournament, which is really amazing. And then to make it all the way to the Final Four. And while all this is going on, this doesn't get a lot of attention, but your ladies team also made the Final Four. I mean, this is crazy. It was a great time to be an NC State Wolfpack fan.
It was unbelievable. And that one is less surprising because Wes Moore is fantastic. Right. He's built a fantastic program. They hadn't gotten over the hump, but make it to the Final Four. And if I believe anybody's going to win at NC State, it's going to be him. But for them to both do it at the same time was ridiculous. And I just keep telling everybody, all right, it's Dave Dorn's year now, 2024, year of the Wolfpack. Like it's all up to you now, Dave. You've got until December. So yeah, I mean, it's been a hell of a time. I wish the NCAA did a better job of scheduling because a lot of our games overlapped times. That's just poor planning. You're really cannibalizing your own ratings by doing that. But both programs just an amazing run.
Yeah, I thought that was UConn. That's something UConn used to do.
Right, yeah. UConn and NC State did it this year. They were the only ones, right?
Right.
UConn's the only one that had done it in like the last 20 years, and then we did it this year. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting time for NC State, no doubt. One last thing before I wanted to get a little talk to you a little bit about your podcast, but I did want to ask Jay, did you have any other questions about basketball before I moved on? I'm sorry.
No. I had a question about just NC State fanhood in general, but you go ahead. I was just gonna say, who, like, I assume Duke and North Carolina are kind of 1A, 1B. I don't know the order there. For Virginia, it's pretty easy. It's Virginia Tech, and then a few people would say Carolina. But with NC State, I feel like everybody says Carolina, Duke. Like, who is NC State's real #1 rival?
Oh, it's Carolina, no doubt. Everybody, ABC's for a reason. Anybody but Carolina. The part where I'll disagree with you is Wake Forest is #2.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. I don't know. So
probably not universal for all NC State fans because a lot of people just default to Duke. But if you really think about it, Wake Forest has been a thorn in NC State's side so many times. They've kept us out of conference championship games in football. They've kept Dave Dorn from having 10 wins multiple times. They've kept us out of New Year's 6 games. They are just – and their fans are obnoxious, everything about them. Duke fans only show up during basketball season.
Right.
So, you can deal with them. And even then, they don't chirp at us a whole lot because they think they're too good for us.
Well, they're certainly not going to chirp now.
Yeah, right. But the Wake Forest fans, Wake Forest just gets under my skin so much. Oh man, that just drive me crazy.
Yeah, I didn't even see that team coming. And so what I was going to ask you about was I wanted to get your thoughts on NC State and potential realignment. And Jay was just talking about fan base, and we were talking the other night with the Virginia Tech guys. And we were comparing your fan base and Virginia Tech's fan base, like the football. Y'all have got a good football fan base, And Jay and I, we've been to NC State games at NC State, and it's rowdy. It's rowdy.
It was during the Carolina State Fair, and it was wild.
Oh yeah, probably Clemson games usually about that time. Yeah, I mean, it's not something you choose as a State fan. Like it's one way or another. Most State fans are like born into it. It's family related, or you went to school there. You know, if you're moving to the area and you're picking a team, you're probably picking one of the Blues because they win more. But it makes you tougher, right? You know, it makes it. You learn a little bit more about life and the hardships of being a State fan. One of the guys put out a video after State made the Final Four, and it was all of the just ridiculous situations that happened. The 24-point game against Virginia Tech, getting beat by 53 by Carolina, just the dumb stuff that has happened. The Chandler Parsons throwing a 75-foot just miracle to beat us. All these things happened, right? And he did this whole montage, and at the end it was like, well, you can't get to the good times without having the tough times, or something like that. And you're like, yes, like it was all worth it to get to this point, right? And hopefully all that stuff's behind us, and the woe is me attitude a lot of State fans have is kind of behind us now, and that we could just go on to being more of a normal fan base. But yeah, I think the similarities between us and Virginia Tech, they're very, there's a lot of similarities to those two.
And you sound like Tony Bennett talking when guy go through all the lows to get to the highs.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's not wrong,
right?
But there's a lot more lows for NC State fans than there have been highs. Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, and probably all fan bases have something they say, but we always said when Virginia lost to UMBC, the first team to lose to a 16, I was like, God bless it. It would be Virginia. You always felt it would be us.
Yeah.
And then
I was on a Purdue pod, and they were saying the same thing. Like, they hadn't won anything ever. And, we had been in the Final Four since 1980, like worse than us. I'm like, oh, damn, man, I feel for y'all. Like, I can relate to that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was pulling for NC State in the tournament because of ACC ties. But then when y'all lost to Purdue, I was pulling for Purdue just because I kind of feel like I know where they've been. I know how they felt.
Yeah. Certainly.
But so what are your thoughts? You got any thoughts on the potential, these lawsuits out there and the realignment, and if there were a realignment where you could envision NC State ending up if the ACC were to go away? Or
it's an interesting question. First of all, I hate all of it. I hate it all,
as do I.
Yeah, I think anybody with any roots in the ACC hates seeing this happen. Hates where we are, what Swofford did with our TV contract, all those things that have put us in this position. Now, as a State fan, I have no idea what's going to happen, right? I do hear the rumors that, we can't get left behind because our board of governors won't let Carolina go without us getting a deal somewhere. So you kind of feel a little bit better about that. But at the same time, it was our president who was the one that voted to expand. He flipped at the end to vote to allow Cal and SMU and Stanford in, and his explanation was like, get over it. And you're like, what? Like that, you can't say that. Like, that's just not good leadership. So I don't know. I hate it all. I think it's all stupid. I wish we'd get back to being a regional sport. That's what makes it great. The regional rivalries. And I think that's what's going to happen in the end, right? If we're being honest and we play this out 10 years, it's going to be the super conferences, whatever you want to call them, and they're all going to come back together and form some new NCAA that is not the NCAA, and it's going to break out into pods or regions or whatever, and it's going to be more regional again, right? It's going back to where we started. We just have to go through all this nonsense to get there because of the TV contracts.
Right.
I don't know where Florida State thinks they're going, right? Trying to sue the ACC. By all accounts, the SEC doesn't want them. I guess maybe to the Big Ten, maybe. But then same thing with Clemson. Like, they want out, but they're not really wanted, right? They don't bring anything to the SEC. I think schools like Carolina, Virginia, NC State bring more value because they're not in those markets already.
Right.
If you're doing the whole TV market thing. But now, if on the other side of it is, why do you want to leave? The ACC is easier to win. Why do you want to go to the SEC and get your ass kicked 6 times a game, right? I mean, or 6 times a year? because you're playing Alabamas and Georgias and whoever else.
Right.
It's a much harder road to get to the playoff. And I know the playoff's expanding and they have more, there's all these things about more seats and whatnot, but at this point, I'd rather be in the ACC. It's for NC State. It's more winnable. We have a real chance to get to the playoff this year because we are in the ACC and it is winnable. So I know it all comes down to money. SEC and Big Ten make more money. At some point, they're going to start paying the players, and you want to have the money to pay the players. Without going on too far of a rant, these universities are all bloated, inefficient institutions in that if it ever got to that point, they would figure out how to spend less money in places where they don't need to be spending money in order to succeed, right? There's been all kinds of conversations that NC State's success in March this year has been eye-opening for the administration on how popular it made the university. Well, no crap, right? Everybody knew that you win more, you want to go. Clemson won its national title and had 17 times more yearly applicants, right? Or annual applicants. It's like, this is not new. It's not, but maybe they needed that to open their eyes, and we'll figure it out. But I don't know. It's a long-winded answer to say I hate it.
Right.
I don't know what's going to happen. I think the lawsuits, my co-host is always like, you're making nothing out of it, right? They're locked in this contract. I've seen some crazy lawsuits get overturned in the last few years. Like, I've seen some things that you just get one judge to just say, this, I don't agree with this, and here's why, and boom, contract's dead, conference is dead.
Right.
So I don't put anything by it. I think ACC is probably in a good position to hold their ground with Florida State and Clemson. But like I said, I'm not a lawyer like your last guest, so I'm not going to be the most accurate on this. But I just don't think not much is going to happen right now. I don't know where it leaves NC State. I would assume would you get, at the very least, the Big 12. But who the hell knows, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, Jay and I, we're definitely pro ACC. And, as I told you earlier, we're old guys and I like the regional stuff. And I was even talking about it last night. Jay and I both went to ODU actually. And when we were at ODU, it was the CAA, and all the teams in the CAA were, they were local schools. And so you had nice regional rivalries. Then they went to Conference USA when they got football, and that's terrible. Like we're traveling to Texas all over the country.
Mean nothing to you. Who cares if we beat Rice?
Right.
When they were, playing
You don't get up for those games as a fan, but you got up to see ODU play VCU or William and Mary or somebody, JMU and those schools. And the same thing with the ACC. We grew up as kids. I mean, we've always been Virginia fans, and there's something about Virginia, North Carolina game or the ACC tournament, or you're in school and you're getting to watch the ACC tournament on the TV in the library. That stuff was cool. And we were talking last night, Jay and I were talking about, if there were to be a change, I'd prefer the big 80 team and break them into pods so we could play the same schedule. Let's have
that's
about
that's what's going to happen. That's the only thing that makes sense in the long run.
Right.
Yeah. When you were talking about that, I've been trying to figure out a way to bring these names up the whole podcast. But my favorite NC State team was the Corciani, Roddy Monroe, Tom Gugliotta. That team was my favorite NC State team when I was, I don't know, I think I was in middle school.
And they came to
Fire and Ice.
Yeah. They came to, so I mean, you're in North Carolina, but my high school growing up in Virginia, little old high school, little old town, it was like an all-star game they had at the high school. And I think Corciani was there or Gugliotta, one of them had come to, it was pretty cool. And then I think they came to the PI. So where I live 10 minutes. You heard of the PIT tournament?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So it's not as big of a deal anymore, but like back in those days, this used to be like the hotbed they do this. All these college seniors would come and they're broken into a bunch of teams and they play games and NBA scouts it would be full of NBA scouts. And this was like the top turn, like Scottie Pippen played here. There's all sorts of people because, and I mean, dang, what's the scout from the Lakers, Jay?
Mitch Cut. You talking about Cupchick?
No, general manager. I'm sorry. He's not with the Lakers anymore. Anyway,
the guy who went to the Golden State.
Memphis went to Memphis. He's the most famous one, but whatever. All these guys are in the gym. It was like a who's who. And I mean, now they still do the PIT tournament, but as we know, college sports are not the same. College basketball is not the same. The one and dones, people aren't around for 4 years. If you're a senior and they're coming to this, you know, there's just the big names are just not out there. So.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler was the last big name that kind of came out of it, I think.
Yeah. So to finish up, I just wanted to, you know, let you tell everybody about your podcast, the Red White Podcast, kind of where people can find you and kind of where you guys got your start and, you know, a little bit about yourselves.
Yeah, we've been going since about 2011. I think it was Tom O'Brien's last year, and we were tailgating at a spring game, and my buddy at the time was like, there's not a whole lot of people talking about NC State. Why don't you want to do it? And I was like, sure. And that's how we started. And it's been 350 episodes now. We've hit over 1 million downloads. And
wow.
It's been fun, man. It's awesome. It's my therapy as a State fan is what I always tell people. It allows me to vent and talk about it and get other people. We built a community of folks that it's an active community 24/7. People are talking, you know, we're talking all kinds of sports. I'm having a good time. We made a lot of friends and relationships. Dustin moved on and Will joined me, and he's been with me, I don't know, 6-7 years now. We've been doing it together, and it's just like y'all, you know, we started talking, shooting the breeze, and it's been fun. People want to hear it. And yeah, I mean, anybody can find us at Red White Podcast on Twitter. Red White Network is our website. We're not hard to find, but yeah, it's something that we like to do, and we like try to have fun with it. Right? We try to be honest. There's a lot of we're not going to read box scores. We're not going to go through any of that stuff. We're going to give you honest opinions. We're going to give us give. Some people might say hot takes or whatever. We're just going to talk honestly about it, right? We're not going to sugarcoat a lot of things. We don't have anything to hide. There's no, nobody's going to take away our access or any of that stuff. It's just we're trying to have an honest conversation. And that's what we've been priding ourselves on. That's what's I think it's helped us last for this long.
Yeah, definitely. Folks need to follow you guys, and your website's outstanding. I've definitely, scroll through your site, and we're trying to get there ourselves. So definitely, folks, give them a follow. Go to thecollegehuddle.com. You can get information on the Red White Podcast as well. They are the voice of NC State for the College Huddle. We really appreciate you guys, you coming on tonight, Evan.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah,
it's a collective you.
It's a collective you. We really enjoyed having you, and we hopefully look forward to collabing in the future. Virginia, NC State, as long as we have an ACC. We'd love to definitely get back up with you guys during football season and back during basketball season. And as a Virginia fan, I hope that it doesn't end as poorly for us the next time. If you're going to beat us, just beat the brakes off of us. Don't hurt us that bad.
Hey, it doesn't happen to us very often, so let's have this one.
We were joking, like, if you guys had won the national championship, do we get to hang a banner too?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tony Bennett would get a nice parting gift from Kevin.
Oh man. Well, we appreciate your time, Evan, and we hope you have a nice evening.
Yeah, you too, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And that was Evan from the Red White Podcast discussing NC State's improbable Cinderella run through the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament. We do appreciate Evan taking the time to join us for an interview. Also appreciate Jesse for coming on tonight from Plant the Spear. Real quick, I did want to mention Brian Myers and Landon Tucker. We appreciate you guys listening. I've seen your comments on there. Hopefully some of your stuff was answered. Tune in. You could take a look back at last week's podcast. You might get a little more information regarding schools and conferences. Also, just a shout out to the Saturday Morning Warrior BYU podcast.
Yeah.
They've been doing a bunch of episodes on realignment, and they've kind of talked to all the different schools from the ACC and other schools as well. Had their podcast on with best fits for the Big 10 or the Big 12. So check those out. We appreciate you guys putting comments and listening tonight. Other than that, just check out thecollegehuddle.com. Check out all the content of all the podcasts on there. And we will see you guys next week, next Friday night, 9 o'clock. It will be the ACC huddle. And other than that, we hope everybody has a great evening, and we'll see you guys next week.